how many of this stupid gun do I need? So first off, Dante from the DMC remake, Ebony and Ivory. That's what we're doing today. I started with FDMs. And these are fantastic. A little too big, but usable. Had a couple of ideas. So I printed one in resin. Resin is gorgeous, but fragile, and I don't feel like worrying about it breaking. So then I made the mold. We all remember how that turned out. But not terrible, usable. Then we came up with these. And these are just perfect. Almost. Let's come in and we'll talk casting real quick. So the first one I cast did not come out very well. I mean, if I were going to stick it to my wall, I'm like, no, I can, between these two, I could have an Ebony and Ivory. These, too many layer lines, I can't get what I want out of it. So we made a mold. These are cool, but ultimately useless. The waste of 4 days. But these things happen. You live and learn, right? This is beautiful. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, though. I don't need an extra one. This one has way too many issues because the mold was large and I couldn't evenly clamp. So I had lots of problems. So, cut smaller boards. Even pressure across the whole thing. I even went out, bought a bunch of effing clamps. They're F clamps. I bought a bunch of them so I can just evenly clamp it. And then they came out perfect, right? These next two are close to flawless. They were both cold cast. This one was cold cast with aluminum powder. And it looks amazing. I absolutely love how it looks. Couple of problems. There's a little bit of a layer line on top, right? Or not a layer line, a parting line on top. And then we have where the sprue is. Notice that's very white. It's easier to see on the graphite powder one, which just, the sheen on this is so cool. Again, we powder the mold, we pour the resin in, it sticks to the top layer, and it can be buffed with steel wool. The problem is, there, you can see where the mold is. So that's very, very, very hard to cover. On this one, if you buff too much, you can actually sand through your coating, and there's no real way to make it stick again. What I'm going to have to do, because the resin I use, 300, is opaque, I'm going to mix a light gray and a dark gray. And then I'm just going to cast them like that. I'll put a clear coat on it. It'll give it a nice sheen. But what I want to do is I want to put a bunch of mica powder and resin inside all these etchings because I want the thing to be smooth. I want it to feel smooth. It's got a weird... I think it'll add to it. Next is to cast a very light gray and a very dark gray gun. And we'll take it from there. I want it, like I said, I want to be able to sand everything smooth. Fix all the etchings where the parting lines are. And not really have to worry about over sanding. But these look gorgeous. These are going to go on my wall as my, I might even put it like that. A little gap in the middle. All eyeball light. Oh, I like that. So, that's another video. But right now, we cast. Here's our current problem. When Smooth on 300 catalyzes, it becomes white. Goes from a clear to a white, so it's hard to know how much. I'm using a black alcohol dye, so it's hard to know exactly how much we need to use because I need a light gray and a dark gray. So we're just gonna mix some stuff up, see what happens. Like I said, I bought a bunch of these clamps solely for this. So I'm gonna clamp this up, which is oddly loud, and we'll get back together when we're starting mixing things. Got everything poured out, ready to go. This stuff's super potent. from what I've read. Never used it. We're going to find out together. So I have no idea how much I'm supposed to use. My goal for this one is to go for ivory, which is a super light gray. This is the B, which is more viscous. So I'm going to put all my dye into that one. And again, since it goes white, I don't know how much I need to use. That's probably way too much. Smooth On makes a transparent resin. It's a 325, Smooth Cast 325. I could have used that. This is what I have. Now I expect this to look extremely dark. I don't think it's going to cast, you know, like I said, when it catalyzes very light. So let's find out. Tuscan Blood Spitter. I had the eye out, but barely just not enough for it. Alright. Move that in there to make it easier to pull out. And now we wait. While we wait for that, which should take about 20 minutes. Probably give it half an hour. Let me show you what else I got. I got some UV resin. UV flashlight. This is what I'm excited about. Bunch of mica powders. Check these things out. That looks super cool. I'm excited. I haven't used mica powders yet. Primarily because I use a opaque resin. But, you know, that's what the UV resin's for. I'm interested. I'm excited to see how this turns out. I may try it on here for the first time, but I don't know. We'll see. Right now we're just going to let this do its thing. Whenever you add a new variable, anything could happen. I have no idea whether this resin turned out or not. So, I cast a blood spitter. Let's see how that turned out. Seemed to be okay. It's a little soft. It probably needs a bit more time to cure. And this did pour in last, so, you know, it's already starting to do its thing. It's a little too light to be ivory. Or it's a little too dark to be ivory, a little too light to be ebony. But I think it'll work out. Does have me worried about how much resin I'm gonna, or how much dye I'm gonna need. Now we're demolding. I'm gonna pull you around so you can see what I'm seeing. Let's see what we got. So there's still charcoal, or not charcoal, graphite powder, which is fine. It's not gonna affect this in the least bit. Oh. Jeez Louise. Bit more flashing than I'd like. But when we pop the sprue off, the color's consistent all the way through. I'm gonna clean this up real quick and see where we're at. Annoyingly, it's almost exactly in between the two of them. So I'm gonna make the next one a little darker and see if I can pull off this being ivory and then the next one being ebony. So I've added way more dye, which kind of worries me a little bit. The more you add to the resin mix, you know, more chances of things going wrong. Not a big fan of variables. This one I'm going to give a little more than I normally would. Probably going to give it a full half hour. It's had time to cure. The test blood spitter came out gorgeous. Looking at those two, I'm going off of this first two prints I did that I really like. And I'm like, well, they don't look like that. And, you know, I think it's going to be fine. When I put them in comparison to what I think is perfect, of course it's not going to look right. But what I think is perfect is useless in this situation. That is beautiful. Look at that thing. Still a little warm, which is good. Hopefully this is my last pull. Alright, so since it's still a little soft, I'm going to go along and cut off all these extra pieces, give it light sanding, and then we'll meet back up. This is where we're at. I have days worth of sanding ahead of me. Excuse me. I had days worth of sanding ahead of me, but oh my goodness, check this out. Look at these two. These two look absolutely perfect. I am so happy with this prop. They feel the right size. They look about the right color. It's a hair too dark. I can live with it. It's only too dark when I compare it to the aluminum one. But I think as a steel and a darkened steel, they're perfect. Next step is I'm going to sand the heck out of everything. It needs to be super smooth. Unfortunately, when I do that, all these little grooves are going to get filled in. Well, they're going to get sanded away, I should say. So I'm going to take a tip, a fine point on my rotary tool, and just deepen everywhere I've sanded. There's not many places that need it. It's just mainly the part line. But I think this is almost ready for the next step. So just a couple of little spots, like that. I mean, but other than that, I love these guns. They turned out so fantastic. Next step, sanding, cleaning everything up. You don't need to see that. It's just sanding and it's super cool. So I have this plan in my head. Don't know if it's going to work. It's one of those, should work. It'd be kind of neat if it did. I've got UV resin. And I've got some mica powders. Pearlized pigment. And I want to fill in all of the filigree with it. Then I'm going to hit it with UV light. See what happens. I'll pull you around so you can see what I'm seeing. I have no idea if this is going to work. This is not a technique I have done before. It's just neat and I want to try it. I have a couple of these little cups. The powders came with the most adorable little spoon. Thought glitter was bad. This stuff, oh my goodness. So I have no idea if this is going to work. My thought is I fill everything in, then I sand it smooth. I was hoping to do a slightly cleaner job at this, but it is what it is. Let's pull that away, see what happens. You know what I might need? I might need a knife. Honestly, a squeegee would probably work better, but let's, nice even layer. Now just do that to the whole gun. See what happens. Look at this thing. That's stunning. It's exactly what I wanted. It's super smooth. It doesn't feel like it feels like it's in, you know, super, super happy with this. Still a little too dark. This one's perfect. That's what it's going to look like once it's cured, or once it's cleared. Next step. I want to drill these holes, the barrels, out just a little bit. So I'm going to find a drill bit that fits, drill these down, and then we're going to pull up with some highlights and weathering. So we'll see in a second. Silver pen. Oh, I just went deep enough in the barrel, by the way, so I can set it there when I clear it, so I can clear the whole thing evenly. But silver pen. I'm just going to hit the highlights, you know, just the edges basically. It's easier to show you than explain to you. So why don't you come around? We'll do this together. So I just have a Testors silver paint pen. I prime it. And then I'm just going to hit the edges. Anywhere I think would have wear. Since I'm clearing the whole thing, I'm not terribly worried about how this looks. I mean, I'm being kind of careful. But that adds just a little more detail to it. And I'm just hitting the edges. Anywhere I think there would be light wear on the gun. And him pulling it in and out of the holster, I think would actually cause a lot of wear. So any harsh edges. It's super easy to overdo it at this point. But I think just a light bit here and there adds a lot of depth to this. And the clear should settle it down a lot too. So I'm just going to do that over both guns, and we'll see in a minute. So I went super subtle on Ebony. Then I went a little overboard on Ivory, because I wanted to lighten it up just a touch, and I think once it clears, everything will be nice and it'll blend everything a little better. And I'm looking forward to that, and that's where we're at now. I'm going to hang these. Well, I'm going to hold these, and then we're going to clear both of them. And I'm just using Duplicolor, clear, probably about 2 or 3 coats. In the end, these two turned out spectacular. Oh my goodness. Just, it looks exactly like I wanted it to. And the gray's a little, or the silver's a little, but it's not bad. And for the costume, it's definitely going to be perfect. Slight weathering. They look a little beat up, like they've been to hell and back, because they have been, you know. But oh my goodness, am I happy with these two guns. Ecstatic. In the end, I had to use Minwax. Let me grab the can and show you. I used some fast drying polyurethane as my clear coat. Not because I wanted to. I was out of my normal coat. But these things turned out perfect. I am super happy with how they look. They're going to be great in the costume. Next step's probably going to be to make holsters for them so I can carry them around in the con with a big sword, and you know, it's Dante. He's over accessorized. I'm super happy with it. This is your kind of thing. Maybe think about joining, hanging out a little more. Sure would be neat. So I hope I see you next time.